Thank you, Miss Sarah. I appreciate it. When I came up here, they asked me where I wanted to sit. Well, I got the one with the pink microphone, so I got 3 girls at home, so I'm used to pink. My name's Mark Weeks, and I'm the City Marshal here in Defuniak Springs, and I want to thank you for allowing me to serve as your City Marshal. I'm 3rd generation native of Defuniak Springs. I have deep roots of business and leadership here in our community. My family owned and operated the Defuniak Springs Wholesale Company, Weeks' Pharmacy, and Weeks Construction. I started stocking shelves, learning budgets, driving big trucks while delivering the supplies to customers on the route as soon as I could drive, and even before. Many of you remember my grandparents who lived and worked here, being the owners of H&M Hot Dog Shop, and Maggie and Merle asking, "What for you?" I grew up with my grandmother taking me there almost every day after school for a hot dog and learning hometown service. It's the best way to keep a business running. In fact, before I married my wife, Cheryl, I had to get Maggie and Merle's blessing because they helped raise me also. I worked for many years with the Florida Highway Patrol, a state agency. They gave me a lot of rigorous training, sent me all over Florida, but I knew it was very impersonal, and I realized I wanted to get back to my roots of helping others in my hometown with municipal policing. Now, instead of saying, "What for you?" I say, "How can I help you?" Here's my number, 333-5158. Call me if you need me. Lots of times in this job, I am walking the beat or I'm out seeing people and checking on them. I especially have a heart for our senior citizens. One time I went by and checked on someone, an elderly gentleman, and saw he needed his lawnmower tire fixed. So I went to work and I fixed it right there. Now, for those of you that know me, I'm not the type to post a good deed on social media. God sees everything and knows our intentions. I just believe in helping others whenever I see a need. That's what I love about being your chief.
Yes, I'm going to stand. Citizens of Defuniak Springs and surrounding citizens, I would like to thank the opportunity that you granted for me to the Downtown Business Association. I'm Donald L. Graham. I was born and raised here in Defuniak Springs. I walked the streets in the late 60s. I used to go to Miss Allison's, Piggly Wiggly when it was across the street from Miss Allison. I used to go to the downtown area where it was booming, movie theater, bowling. I'd go to the 5 and 10 cent store, ice cream, stuff like that. And I've seen Defuniak Springs over the years as it disintegrated. It's just like everybody sort of divided and everybody is not coming together as one. As your police chief, what I want to bring is a respect back to that badge. I get tired of every day, every week, you see something negative at the police department. That's one badge that I wore. I wore it proud. I left Defuniak Springs and I opened up a multi-million-dollar business, a security firm. I protect some of the highest capital places in the Gulf Coast area, like banks, institutions, like resorts, multi-million resorts, Sandusky. I done it all for the last 24 years. I'm a businessman. And I think that's what you need at your police department first. As your police chief, I will bring a business atmosphere. I will make sure that these officers is happy. Once we have a roll call, if they're not satisfied, if something is wrong, we're going to talk about it before I put them in trust in protecting the citizens of Defuniak Springs. So I'm Donald L. Graham, and I would always tell you, I want to make Defuniak first again.
Hello, I'm James Hurley, candidate for City Marshal. I want to tell you about myself.
Mr. Hurley, will you put the...
Yep, we can do that. All right. I'm a 4th generation native of Defuniak. Me and my wife Marie are raising our 3 boys, Jack, Max, and James Henry. My education is I graduated from Walton High School, went to OW, then to Florida State, graduated with my Bachelor's of Science in Criminology. Work history, I started off at the Sheriff's Office here in Walton County when I was 16 years old through DCT as a part-time administrative assistant, so I literally came from the bottom. During that time, I did things as far as property and evidence, dispatch, and finally at the age of 20, I became a Walton County Sheriff's Deputy. Or later, I became a K-9 Deputy, and then assigned to investigations, where at that time I implemented a sex offender monitoring and tracking program that is still used today. After 2 years being sworn there, I went to the state and accepted a position as a special agent with the Florida Division of Alcoholic Beverage and Tobacco. We cover 8 counties, including Walton all the way to Jackson down to Franklin. We work undercover narcotics, stolen property, financial crimes, gambling, and prostitution. Have worked with every state and local agency in the Panhandle and many federal ones. Some of the awards and accolades that I'm most proud of, I was Division of Alcoholic Beverage and Tobacco Special Agent of the Year. I was nominated as State Law Enforcement Officer of the Year by the State Law Enforcement Chiefs Association. And just recently, last year, I was given the Life Saving Award from the State Law Enforcement Chiefs Association for saving a young lady who was a victim of a drunk driving incident. People ask me why I'm running for Chief of Police. And the truth is, after an overwhelming support of our community for me to run again, I'm doing it for you. I see that our town has a growing narcotics problem that's not being addressed. Our citizens are not feeling safe. They're afraid to come out of their house, especially in the evening. They can't enjoy sitting on the front porch because some drug addict is coming up to them and asking them for money. We've got to rebuild our relationships. Sorry, I went quicker than I thought.
For our candidates, this first question that we have is you probably answer have some of the answers already been spoken for. But what the first question is for Chief Wiggs, starting out. What previous law enforcement agencies have you worked for, and what was your reason to come and work in Definiak Springs?
Well, I said earlier I worked for the Florida Highway Patrol, and I always wanted to come back home, and I wanted to work for the municipality. I wanted to work for my hometown. And I knew that. I knew that years ago. And when you work for the state, it's very broad. You're really kind of like a number. There's not a lot of personal touch when you're with a bigger agency. Not like it is when you're with a local agency like the police department, the sheriff's office. They know you by name. They know who to complain to. They know who to complain about. When you're with a state agency, who do you call? You don't know. So I want to come back here and make a difference because I was born and raised here. I love my community. I love being here. I love serving as chief. And I hope to continue that.
I'm a 1986 graduate of Florida State Police Academy. I started at the Definiak Springs in 1987 under the direction of the great Clinton Hooks. As I began getting to learn the city, trained by Chief Hooks, I used to run the patrol all by myself in the late 80s, early 90s, where the Definiak Springs actually, to me, was a lot bigger. We had movie theaters, we had 2 shopping centers. So I know about how to cut costs and do an efficient job. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you just listen to me, I got the experience. I was a correction officer, I trained in law enforcement, and I'm a businessman. So when you put all that together, I can make the Definiak Springs safe and first again. Thank you.
Once again, I started off at the sheriff's office in high school, age 16. Became a deputy there, spent 2 years sworn as a deputy sheriff. And for the last little over 13 years, I've been a special agent with the Florida Division of Alcohol, Beverage, and Tobacco. I've had an opportunity to promote, but with state level promotions, a lot of times happen in South Florida. I've got too many roots here to just back up and leave, and this is my hometown. This is where I'm going to stay.
Mr. Graham, the next question will start with you. In your opinion, what is the current state of the City Marshal's office with regard to manpower, equipment, and vehicles?
That's a good question. From my studies, the current state of the Definiak Springs Department, the morale is down. The situations at the Definiak Springs Department need a boost. And as far as the equipment-wise, we have good equipment, brand new equipment that when I was a police officer, we always had second-hand equipment, but we always kept the city safe. So, you know, under my administration, we're not always going to spend. To get the job done, you have to be proactive. You got to be a 24/7 chief that lives here in the city of the Phoenix Springs. Now, we're not getting that service now. Now, when y'all have a major emergency, like hurricanes and stuff, guess where Donald L. Graham going to be? Right there at the police department, working with the county, trying to get shelters for y'all residents. I care about the Phoenix Springs. You know, I'm a businessman, so if you could just listen to the sound of my voice, trust me, I'm qualified to get the job done, and I'm equal opportunity that we're going to have the best police department that you citizens will be proud of. Thank you.
So some of the manpower issues that we see is we're a little top heavy, a lot of brass, not enough Indians. We need more boots on the ground. We need workers out there that are combating crime on the streets, not people sitting in offices. There definitely needs to be a little restructuring there. As far as equipment needs, what I see is the ability to write reports from the patrol car. Not tickets, not accident reports, but actual physical offense reports. Right now, currently, if I come out to your house and take a theft report, I've got to go back to the police department to write a report. That's taking me off the street and putting me in an office. We got to have our officers on the street visible to our public. That's how we're going to combat crime. So with that being said, we have to update and put a CAD, a computer-aided dispatch, in our vehicles where we can write reports, we can monitor our calls, and be proactive.
When I came to the police department some 13 years ago, there wasn't enough cars that would run to put police officers on the street, guns that wouldn't shoot. There's a lot of equipment that was just out of date, dilapidated. In 13 years, we've come a long way. We got better cars, better equipment than we've ever had in the history of this agency. You have to rotate those out on a timely basis. Cars, usually 5 to 7 years, 100 or so thousand miles. Guns, they have to be rotated out. Computers have to be rotated out. Things don't last forever. One of the most important things we have at the police department is our people. It's the greatest asset above equipment or anything else is our people. We're always striving to do better, get more equipment, and push forward. We need a police department. It's out of date, been out of date, it's dilapidated. We want to change that. We want to keep moving forward.
This next question, we'll start with Mr. Hurley. And this is also a little bit redundant, but we're going to go ahead and ask anyway. If you could make a wish list of things for the City Marshal's office, would it be personnel, equipment, or training? And how would your list, or what would your list include, and how would you pay for it?
Great question. Like I said, we have a ever-growing narcotics problem in this community. So we've got to look at combating that. First is off, we've got to look at street-level narcotics. How are we going to do that? I've had several local businesses that have pledged day one, if elected, they will purchase a K9 at no cost to the city and donate to us. That's how we start there. Second off, we talk about a new building. We've got a beautiful building over here called the Old Health Department that we were budgeted $188,000 that we didn't spend to revamp. That would be more accessible to our public, easier to get into. If anybody's ever gone to the police department right now in the current state, you realize it's at a busy time, you have to drive down east and then come back west to even get in the parking lot. More accessible means the more transparent, the more that you are able to come see us. So that's where we're going to start there.
Under my administration, first of all, the wish list would be number one, is we're going to go inside the police department. You know, sometimes you have to go inside the core of the apple to get, to get to the problem. So the core of the problem is when you got police officers not happy to be here in the Phoenix Springs and just show no spirit, no respect to the citizens, you got a problem. So I'm gonna have a meeting the first day, day number one. So we're gonna have a meeting and line them up and say, look, if you don't want to be here, give me your badge and gun. See you, nice to be you. So I'm an Iron Fist chief. You know, this is no little sissy game. When you the police chief, I got to answer to everybody. Now, one second wish list, I'm gonna set up a 5-man team. We're gonna call it Defune Springs 5-0. We're gonna, number one, investigate some of these cold cases that some of these families hadn't had closure. I'm gonna have one of them doing that. The second thing is going to crack down on drugs. That's the third thing is we're gonna make sure we secure these parking lots at these gas stations. Thank you, man, that was too quick. Thank you.
Okay, we should have gone from Mr. Hurley to Chief. So remember, we're going like this. Okay, so Chief, you'll answer, and then you will start with the next.
So I get to stand up again, right?
No, you don't.
Okay.
If you need us to repeat the question, let us know, Chief.
I think I can remember. We need a new police department. Anybody that's been to the police department knows it's in bad shape. Has been for many years. It's been a lot of different things over the years. Parking lot, there's just not a lot of parking. We're usually parking on other people's property. The people that work there around the place just to leave some parking spaces for customers or citizens to come in. We need that bad. The problem is money. It's going to take somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million to $2 million to buy a piece of property and or build an appropriate police department. We need additional personnel. It takes money. The agency's doubled since I've been there. About 14 people when I first got there. We got about 27 now. 20 sworn, 7 non-sworn. We're going to need additional personnel to help patrol the streets and get out there. And with all this growth that's coming, it's going to require a lot more patrols, a lot more officers, especially if you have what's coming down south of I-10 with Veterans Lodge. We're going to need it.
All right, this next question will start with you, Chief Weeks. How would you help solve the homeless population in Defuniak Springs?
You know, that's an ongoing problem, and we've seen a little increase in that over the last few months and maybe a year or so. Again, that comes with growth. You know, growth is great. We want growth. But unfortunately, bad things come with growth too. Things like traffic, things like homeless people. And those are the things you deal with on a daily basis. And we don't have a proper place here in Defuniak to let somebody stay the night. If you have a cold weather shelter, if it's open when it reaches a certain temperature, there's a place for people to go. Other than that, there's really not a place to put anybody. So we rely on churches, the matrix. Sometimes we help them get to the next exit or next destination if they're passing through. That is a problem here that we just are not able to handle with these people that are out on the streets and walking around with no place to go. So that needs to be addressed because you'll see them from time to time downtown. You'll see them at the lake yard, and we'll move them along because it's not necessarily illegal to be on the street, but we'll move them along as fast as we can.
That's a good question. I'm going to be your compassionate chief also too. Is we're going to confront them with compassion because you know they always realize that's somebody's son. So we're going to check them out. You know, maybe we could reach out to the families if they're from Crestview or just wherever there are homeless people. We're going to try to help them out. And I'm going to work with the local churches, the local YMCA, the Boys and Girls. You know, we can implement something. And if I have to donate my whole salary every week or 2 weeks, how the chief get paid, I will. Because I'm not running for the money. I'm running for a voice for everybody. So, you know, when you see a homeless person, you never know their situation. So you're going to see a compassionate chief. You know, I'm Defuniak Springs. You know, I walked these streets, you know, when I was a little boy. And I seen things around here that, you know, I always tried to fix. I left Defuniak Springs, opened up a business in Destin, went to Fort Walton, had 2 businesses running, and I opened up one in Defuniak Springs. Like I said, I'm qualified to be your chief and make Defuniak first again. Thank you.
So first we have to identify how these folks got here to where they are today. Once we do that, let's figure out how to get them where they have the resources that make them progress. Because ultimately, you know, we talk about humanity. Ultimately, if we can get them back to where they've got a foundation, that's the humane thing to do. we've got to look at and work with our faith-based organizations, our civic organizations to help fund that. Sometimes they might need a bus ticket to Texas, whatever it might be. But figure out exactly how they get here and where they need to be. And find the means to get them there. Because ultimately they're the ones that are committing crimes to survive. You know, they're going in there and stealing food, they're stealing, you know, tools, they're stealing the smaller items to make money so they can survive. And ultimately when we talk about humanity, that's what we got to do. We've got to get them where the resources that they have can help them.
In your opinion, this is for Mr. Grant. In your opinion, what should be the main priorities of the police department, such things as traffic control, neighborhood patrol, or other?
Another good question. You know, I told you to throw me some hardball.
You said some hardball.
Well, yeah. Well, like I've said earlier, in my administration, we're going to go inside and work our way out. That means that our patrol is going to be, we're going to start in the neighborhoods. You know, my door knocking and walking, you know, boots on the ground and people calling me, social media. Some of the biggest issues is we don't ever see the patrols in your neighborhoods. We see them on 331 South. You know, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, a police officer, you got to start in your neighborhoods. Stop the speeders, the suspicious activities, the drug deals. You got to be visible in your neighborhoods. So I want to put police cars in your neighborhood. Not police cars parked in Crestview or Geneva, police cars here in the city of the Phoenix Springs. Thank you.
First priority of mine, once again, is narcotics enforcement. Ultimately, we've got to get a handle on that because that is what's causing the rest of our crimes. A lot of our thefts, burglaries, domestic issues is drug. We've got to get a handle on that. While out speaking with a lot of the residents in our community, traffic enforcement in residential areas seems to be a hot topic. Apparently it's not getting done to the satisfaction of some folks. We've got to start doing that. Just putting a radar trailer that tells you how fast you're going is not good enough for me. Let's put an officer out there. Hey, nobody likes to get a ticket, but if that's what it's going to take to save a life, come talk to me about it.
Patrol is the lifeblood of any agency. That's number one, boots on the ground. Any agency will tell you that. Patrol, patrol, patrol. You got to have boots on the ground, cars on the streets, cars at work. You got to get out there, you got to patrol the neighborhoods. You got to do a little bit of everything. You got to be visible. You got to see the people. You got to be able to get to a call within just a few minutes. Without patrol, you really don't have an agency. That's number one. And anytime we have to, we'll put extra people out. People that work in the office will get out and go on patrol. Whatever they need to do, take calls. We've done it, been there. We do it every day. Some days we got more people out than others because of sick leave, annual leave, training, whatever. We're fighting manpower issues every single day. Even when you're full staff, you're shorthanded. That's just the nature of law enforcement. Ask any agency, any leader, any sheriff, they'll tell you. It's just one of those things you deal with every day, and you try to get through it the best you can.
All right, the next question will start with Mr. Hurley. What are your greatest accomplishments while in law enforcement?
Well, that's a good one. Coming home each day, that's the biggest accomplishment that you can do each day, especially when you're out dealing with a lot of dangerous people. And I've been in situations that I never would have dreamed I'd be in growing up in the Feniac. Like I said, I cover 8 counties, and you know, we've got issues here, but other places I've worked, it's a lot rougher. And spring break sometime in years past felt like a war zone. Didn't know if I would make it back. But coming home to my wife and kids, that's my greatest accomplishment.
Greatest accomplishment, serving as your city marshal, quite frankly. It's an honor and a privilege. Took a lot to get here. Takes a lot to stay here. Working in this job has a lot of advantages, a lot of disadvantages. Sometimes you're the good guy and sometimes you're the bad guy. Right now in law enforcement, we get beat up on a daily basis. It's hard to stand in the line of fire every day. But it's worth it because I'm doing it for you. I'm putting my life on the line, my family's life on the line, because I'm doing it for each citizen. Every single day, that's what I do. And that's what I want to continue to do. I like it. I can handle it. I have shown that we can handle it. And we want to keep pushing forward and moving this agency forward. And hopefully with your help, we can continue to do that. We need your support. Law enforcement needs your support.
Well, some of my biggest accomplishments at the City of the Phoenix Springs Police Department, well, I started the first bike patrol in the Phoenix Springs in 1989. Second, I had a top-of-the-line auxiliary department, and that's something that we're going to bring, under my administration, we're going to bring back the auxiliary department. A lot of the sheriffs call it a posse. Well, you know, I'm a conservative man, a businessman, and if we bring back the police auxiliary full force, they'll be doing doing police at the ball games, special events, Lake Fest, and that'll free up the patrols. So, like I said, the biggest accomplishments I got is I love the Phoenix Springs. You hear me talk about the Phoenix first. This cost that spin, and I get upset when I see a police car in the Phoenix Springs in some other city parked in the neighborhood. Don't you know that police car is like another police officer? So under my administration, we're going to start using that 5-mile radius by the ordinance. We're going to stress that. Now, when I was under Chief Hooks, if we were 6 miles outside the city limits, we had to bring that car back home. So like I said, I'm going to respect the will of the people and bring back the police department for customer service. Thank you.
While there's been a lot of talk tonight about growth and expansion in the city, this next question deals with budgeting. Can the city marshal's office operations reduce its budget, and how would you recommend this be done? Chief Weeks.
You absolutely can. You're going to have to send people home. That's how you reduce the budget. It's expensive to have law enforcement coverage. It's expensive to have officers. Unfortunately, we cost you money. We don't make you money. You want to reduce the budget significantly? Send people home. And you know what that's going to do? You're going to have less patrols, more crime, and more issues. That's the bottom line. And unfortunately, we need more money in the budget because we're going to need more personnel. The biggest expense of any budget is personnel, pay and benefits. It's usually 75 to 80% of any budget. Everything else is equipment, keeping the lights on, whatever. That's what it would take. You can trim some stuff here and there, $100, $200, $1,000 here and there. But if you want a significant decrease in the budget, you'd have to send people home.
Like I said, I'm a conservative, and I believe in work, hard work. And this police department is the biggest police department we ever had in the city of the Phoenix Springs. So, you know, when you hear about, well, we need more money, we need more patrols. I mean, we do need more patrols. We know we need more patrol officers. We got a police department. If you had administration, like I said, you need a business person that can think and strategize on how you could get the job done effective to serve the Phoenix Springs. So I'm gonna have a top-of-the-line administrator, the best guys and women that money could buy. Now, number one thing is, like I said, I'm gonna look at inside and make sure my police officers is happy. I'm gonna find ways to give them an incentive and a pay raise. They're very comparable, you know, to the sheriff and stuff like that. So, like I said, we could do the job. And as your police chief, I'm going to be out there 24/7. Some calls that I need to take, when patrol need to take, I'll be ready to take. So like I said, make the Phoenix first again. Thank you.
All right, so we look at the budget, and I've actually gone line by line on our police department budget. And one of the claim to fame by one of our candidates is he saved $1 million in the budget. You got to spend your budget. When you got $80,000 in one year that you didn't spend on salaries, and another year $43,194 that you didn't spend on salaries. That's manpower that's not on the streets. That's ultimately your stuff that's getting stolen that we don't have people covering that. We've got to spend the budget we got. And then when we want more, we've got to look at grants. We talked about Chris Mitchell earlier. If elected, Chris Mitchell is going to be a busy man when it comes to the police department because we're going to find money left and right so we can tap into these resources and do these programs that you, the citizens, are wanting. Ultimately, it's your money. We've got to spend your money wisely. We've got to spend it efficiently. And we've got to get things moving in the right direction in this town.
Next question, we'll start with Mr. Graham. What are your thoughts on dissolving the police department and merging it with the sheriff's office?
Absolutely no. I was at the police department where topic came up several times at the city hall, expanding the police department. The reason why I say that's a no, that we should never ever let that happen, is because when you got a sheriff department running a city, you're going to be lacking sometimes responses. You're going to have a sheriff maybe over in Freeport, they got an emergency over there, who's going to cover the city? So we always, and I'll tell you something else too, there's nothing in the world as far as advertising. When you're riding around town, you're advertising the Phoenix Springs by that name on that police car, the Phoenix Springs. So we would lose value of disbanding the police department. Now, as your new chief, I'm going to work with the sheriff. You know, and I'm going to get the people more confident in calling your police officers on calls. You know, like, you don't have to call the sheriff. This is my jurisdiction. And like I said, I'm a tough, hands-on boss, and that's what I've done at D-Train Security, so I want to make y'all first again. Thank you.
So I'd say absolutely not. First off, it's our history. There's only 2 city marshals in the state of Florida, us being one. With that being, in fact, being an elected position, I think is a good thing. You get to vote on who represents you. And if you don't like it or you get tired of the way it is, you get to change it. So I would say absolutely not. I think we've got a good thing going. We've got some tweaking and some work to do, but ultimately it comes back to service. You know, you're paying as taxpayers for a service living inside the municipality. We need to provide that service to you. And when we look at right now, the push for this, 1,000 calls a year are being placed for law enforcement, but it's not to the police department, it's actually to the sheriff's office to come work inside the city. We've got to get back with our community and figure out where that void is and gain that trust back. 1,000 calls a year on average, and that's taking out SRO activity. That's taking out animal control. It's calls for service.
No, I would not be in favor of that at all. Never have been. It's very unique to have a police department. A lot of cities don't have a police department. Destin, for example, doesn't have a police department, so they contract with the sheriff. So the sheriff carries a lot of weight when he makes that contract. Because what's your choice? It's very expensive to start one up. I would never, ever be in favor of that. Also, we're very lucky here. You get to elect your chief, your city marshal. There's only 7 elected chiefs in the state of Florida. Only 2 are called city marshal, us and Arcadia. Very rare. That's unique. It's history. We don't want to lose that ever. You never ever want to lose your right to vote on something, ever. Just think about how many things have been taken from us over the years that we don't have a say-so in. At least we can vote, and that's one thing that's sacred. Keep the vote. Never give it up. That's what we want.
What you're all looking for, the last question. This will be for Mr. Hurley to start out with. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Communicate, communicate, communicate. How would you resolve the radio communications issues with the Sheriff's Department and the state?
Good question. So currently with the state where I work, we're under a system called SLEAR, State Law Enforcement Radios. That is what the Sheriff's Office has gone to. We've got to be able to communicate with the Sheriff's Office. You know, we had this pursuit a couple weeks ago where we can't communicate. All right, so in critical incidences, not necessarily everyday call service, but in critical incidents, we have to be able to bridge that gap, because ultimately that's going to get somebody hurt. Right? When one agency's doing this and the other agency's doing this and they're not communicating, that's where you have blue on blue. Right? That's where good guys end up killing good guys. We cannot have that. The other issues that I see too is 911 communications. Right now, when you call 911 inside the city, you get transferred from the county to the city. That's another gap that we have to bridge some way, we have to look into. But how do we solve that? We've got to look at doing a different radio system. But if you like talking to me, talk to me later.
You know, this has been an ongoing problem with every agency for quite a few years. The sheriff solved their problem a few years back by going with slurs. That's a very expensive system, very expensive. We just recently changed to Moto Turbo. It's a digital system. It's on the digital highway, if you will. Slurs is on the digital highway. We were on the old analog system, if you will. So now we're on the same path as the sheriff's office and other state agencies. We can bridge that gap. We are bridging that gap. We were sold this system for one of the main reasons, so we could talk to other agencies, because they can bridge us. Digital can be bridged from one company to the next, if you will. This is a good system, and it's good for us because we can afford it. You want the best law enforcement agency you can afford, and we can afford this system. We're still working out the bugs. We just went to it in the last few months. It's one that Motorola is working with us to make sure we solve all the problems that it's shown us in the last couple of weeks.
Citizens, that's a major problem we got here in the city of Phoenix Springs. You can't even communicate with the sheriff or the state patrol. Now, that, to me, that is a crisis. I will call for an emergency meeting with the city council and get things done immediately so we could talk with the sheriff and the state patrol. I mean, split seconds count, lives matters. You know, that situation over in Crestview, hey, under my administration, we'd have been notified with the sheriff, we'd have been notified with the state patrol. Oh, it would have never came here in the city under my administration. We'd have took it down any means necessary to take it down, because I care about your citizens of the Phoenix Springs. So I want to work with the sheriff, work with the state patrol to make sure that everybody in the Phoenix Springs, I don't care what side of town or what business, is safe. So that's an emergency crisis to me. On day one, I'll get it resolved. Thank you.
All right, that's the last of our questions. We're going to give them again 2 minutes to recap. But before they do that, you know, I'm a former politician. I got to say something. We appreciate you coming here tonight. We greatly appreciate you being here. We would like to ask, being you see the board members sitting here, if you're sitting in a chair, if you, before you leave, would help stack them up in the back, that would help us greatly to clean up the room. We're going to allow about 30 minutes. Most of the city council candidates and city council, I believe, is here. As long as these, we're going to give you an opportunity to ask them a question personally if you'd like to. You will have the opportunity to do that for about 30 minutes before we start, you know, making the bells and whistles ring again. Again, I want to make it clear and everyone understand, because I've been asked to do this twice. This is not a city-run forum. The Defuniak Springs Business and Professional Association is a private organization. Our dues are $40 a year in case anybody wants to join. The money that we get from the businesses that do support us helps pay for this room and the things that we do. So we thank you for coming out tonight. I thank my board members for their time. And we started with Weeks, right? So we'll start with Mr. Hurley, and then you'll have an opportunity to come up and speak to any of them. Some of the city council candidates and all of y'all might want to come up here. It might be easier for the people in case they want to ask you some questions prior.
Once again, thank y'all for coming out tonight. Thank you for the DBPA for hosting this event. So 4 years ago, I stood in this very room and I warned us that if we did not start combating our narcotics, it was only going to get worse. Since then, we found needles floating in the lake yard, we found them on city streets, and we found them in vacant houses all around this community. We must do better. And I'm going to switch the tone up a little bit and talk to a different demographic that's not here tonight. But that's these people that are dealing drugs in our town. On April 9th, when elected, I'm putting you on notice, you better find a different place to do your dirty business, because know that we're coming for you if I get elected. The current police chief will often ask, do you feel safe? From the citizens I've talked to, the resounding answer is no. They no longer feel safe going outside their homes, and especially at night. Like we talked earlier, these folks, the panhandling them, approaching them, they don't feel comfortable. If elected, I will continue to visit your neighborhoods and make sure that your houses, property, and family are secure and safe. I'm committed to serving you every day the way a truly dedicated police chief should. I will leave you with this one quote from one of the greatest men Definiak has ever known, and that's Clinton Hooks. When you wake up, get up. And when you get up, do something. Because somewhere, somebody needs your help. I promise you that every day I live my life by them type of values. And I appreciate your vote. So vote James Hurley April 9th. Thank you.
Citizens, thank you for coming. And I just want to, make it crystal clear. I love the Phoenix Springs. I'm a businessman, conservative, and one thing you always will get from me, I'm going to make the Phoenix Springs safer and first again. Now, some of the things that I see that we need to improve on is to getting out speaking, walking the beat, getting out these police cars. First thing on day one, I'm going to get that tent off these police cars. I want you to see your police officer. I want you to know who she and he is. During the day, when my police officers patrolling, they're going to be stationary over there near the schools. We have currently 4 or 5 schools in the city. We need them police officers in that area, stood on 331. So issues like that I'm very concerned about. I'm always proactive in trying to get sidewalks here on Walton Road, the traffic light on 90 and 331. And then I'll be out at night, these street lights. It's some dark areas. It makes my police officers unsafe. It makes citizens unsafe. So I'm very proactive. I want to be your 24/7 chief. When you call me, I don't want to tell you to come to the police department. I'm going to come to the police department. That's one thing Chief Hooks taught me, that you come to the people, because we work for the people. On day one, in my first 100 days, which should have been done a long time ago, we're going to erect a statue of Chief Hooks out at the police department to dedicate it to the man that actually saved this police department. Now, both of them probably a little too young to remember, but I do. So like I said, we're gonna dedicate it to, I'm not running for the money. I'm gonna give my money back. Matter of fact, the first 30 days, I don't want the check. I just want the voice. So citizens, think about it. When you go to the polls, think about Mr. the Phoenix Springs. Thank you.
Good job.
Well, thank you guys for coming out tonight. I really do appreciate that. Many of you know me. I'm Mark Weeks. I'm your city marshal. And I love being your city marshal. Remember to vote on April 9th for Mark Weeks. Keep Weeks. But before you go, I want you to remember this. Crime is down in the Phoenix Springs for over 61%. The lowest it's been in 20 years. Beating crime and stretching every dime. That's what we do. We're running drug dealers out of town, and we're locking them up. If you don't think so, just go to the jail and look. Ask some people who work there. Meth is our #1 problem in this city. Most cities can say the same thing. Equates to 50% of all crime is drugs. 50%, think about that. 50% of all crimes deal with drugs. That's a problem every community faces. That's a problem that every community fights every day. Every single day. You got to be tough. And when you do it today, you got to come back tomorrow and do it again. Sometimes to the same house. We've been to some houses 3 and 4 and 5 times, arrested the same people. Search warrants. You got to lock them up. You got to demand tougher sentences. That's what we need. I ask that you keep Weeks on April 9th. Thank you.